Hey, hey, what it is, you sexy beasts. Welcome to another episode of Schlockaholics. As always, I am joined today by my fellow co-hosts, Cody and Septim Sin of Septim Sin versus the World. Let me get this fucking graphic out of the way here. We're going to be talking about a film. This thing just like locked up on us here. So how you guys doing? There we are. All right. Off to a rocky start, but hopefully that's the end of that. So we got a very special film for you guys today, selected by none other than Septim Sin. It is quite a rarity in the indie film scene. I can't say I'd ever heard of it before he brought it up. We're going to let him do the introductory stuff here because I really don't know anything about this other than what I saw on the screen. And it's real hard to find information about this film. But why don't you go ahead and give him the tail of the tape there, Brandon?
So this is a film done by a company called Breakfast for Demons, called Gamesmaster, What Have You Done? Now, I don't have a lot of information on this. It was done in the mid-2000s, and it ran the con circuit for a number of years. I have the Blu-ray. I mean, not Blu-ray. There's no Blu-ray for this. Well, unless you count what I sent Mo. But
There's no Blu-ray for this.
There's no Blu-ray for this, with quotations.
Trust us, it's not out there.
There are, in theory, some DVDs and at least one VHS on eBay. So
real bad picture of it too. Not sure that's real.
So it's this is a series that spawned two entries. This movie and another movie called Dungeon Rubber. I was lucky enough to come across this on eBay, and because I love movies about role-playing games. Eventually, I plan to create a video on my own channel about all the gaming movies that I have in my collection, because some of them are rare. Not as rare as this, though. It is a movie that has toured the con circuit back in the day. I think it was a fairly limited tour, but I'm not going to go much further into that. The essential movie is about a group of gamers that are going through their quest, but they are short a member. So the Game Master does what any Game Master would do. He summons a demon to fill in the spot empty at the table. And that essentially is the whole plot of this. They make the demon play a paladin of Jesus Christ, which also is very interesting and was personally a interesting job, because one of the first gaming groups I was in, actually no, the first one, had a paladin of Jesus Christ, but he was not played by a demon, at least not that I know.
It'd be fucking sweet to make a character that is just Jesus in a D&D campaign and then draw him to look like fucking Jeff Bridges from Big Lebowski. I think I'm gonna do that one of these days.
So I don't know. Am I leading the discussion here? I guess however you want to do it.
Yeah, we'll let you lead her. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So, well, actually, Mo,
we got a trailer to show the people real quick.
Oh yeah, sorry.
We dive into that. Give you a little taste of that boggling action here. What's that?
Go for it.
Apologies if we have any delays here tonight too, folks. For whatever reason, my signal's got me on a slight delay. I'll try to defer to Brandon first so that I'm not stepping on his toes too much. But yeah, let's check out the trailer here for Gamesmaster, What Have You Done? And then we'll jump into, I guess, our first impressions, and we'll let Brandon kind of, guide us through this journey.
Here, Games.
Oh, here, Games.
My liege.
Here, Games.
I want to say Give it to me or I'll kill you.
304 of the Altarian Guide to Altaria, it plainly states that Henry the black fungus of...
Every morning I trip through the dew in homage to a friend I had long ago. In hell, I'd have shown your corpses to your mothers by now!
You are a demon no longer. Now you are a player character. Now you are a paladin.
My name is Suckface!
As a paladin, you choose not to partake of the alcohol.
What trap?
Everyone sees you like this.
No way is that gonna work, Suckface.
Too bad, pal. Now.
I'm sorry, but you are a paladin.
Shut up!
Midget!
You will all pay.
Yeah, that available on DVD part's not true, but I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that funky song in the trailer till hearing it in headphones right now.
Well, actually, that website is partially functional, but doesn't lead to much these days. It's like a lot of things. Actually, I went back. It caused me to go back in the day to an old website that I used to have back in college. So in the early 90s. No, sorry, not that old. Late 90s. And it was still up. Everything was up there. All the stuff from my old campaigns, all the old characters and stuff, that was up there. That was kind of cool. But
I made a Final Fantasy VII like fan page with a friend back in the day. I doubt it's still around, but it would be really cool if it's like somewhere on the Wayback Machine, because we put a seriously virginal amount of time into that shit, and probably be kind of embarrassing to look back on now. But man, was I proud of it at the time, especially when we figured out how to get the cursor to look like a little Buster sword. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, actually, you want to know what's funny is that a Google search will pick up my page currently, which it's
You
under.
might have to look at that after this.
Yeah, it's Tales of the Flaming Druid 2, I believe, but the original one was wiped out. But this is, of course, a labor of love, I would expect. So, actually, why don't we start with you, Mo? Was this your first exposure to Gamesmaster? What have you done? Well, other than maybe all of our false starts at getting to this.
I have watched it like 2 or 3 times now at this point, but yeah, doing it for the show here was the very first time I'd ever been aware of this. As you know, I was aware of like other stuff, you know, and in a similar vein, the Gamers, Journey Quest, things like that. But this, I'd never heard of this one. Like you said, the con run was real limited. This is right around back when I was first starting to go to cons frequently as well. So if it had been out here at ours, I'm sure I would have stumbled upon it at the time. But I really enjoyed it, man. I mean, obviously, it's like super DIY, like literal backyard movie shit, where, you know, obviously this group of kids and like the one girl that they knew got together and made this D&D movie. And I think that it's pretty serviceable for what it's trying to be. It functions as a real good sort of love letter to the game, while at the same time having fun with the notion that you could torture like a demon by making it be good in the game. I thought that whole gimmick was super fucking cool. Really inspiring movie, because even though like it's not necessarily put together the best, it doesn't sound the best, it doesn't look the best. Obviously, they use a boglin for the demon, which is pretty great. I was going to drag out one of my boglins from upstairs, but my kid got annoyed when I was trying to rearrange shit on the shelf and get it, so I just left her stuff alone. But it's just good stuff. And this is a prime candidate, I would say. Like, if you gave me a bunch of Hollywood money, this is like an indie film I wouldn't mind remaking, like on a big budget. It would be super fucking funny to do this and get like known comedians to be in the role of the demon or something, and you could make this epic if you really had the funds to do it. You know what I mean? And I love finding indie movies like that where it's like, this is just begging for somebody to pick it up and do it as like an HBO movie or like a limited series or, even a theatrical release. I could see people getting into this. And if someone did do it, it might revive. Well, D&D is pretty mainstream now, but if you could have done this like even 10 years after this initially happened in like 2016, it would have probably had a good hand in reviving a lot of interest in D&D if you were to have remade it at the time. So super cool. And it's a shame to see a film like this kind of fall into complete fucking obscurity. We're not exaggerating when we say it's hard to find any information at all online about this movie. So I feel quite proud to be doing this today, just if anything on like a film preservation sort of standpoint. So yeah, that's basically my first impressions on it. It's rough around the edges, but in a charming way, and super inspiring as these movies should be. If they're done with real heart, they're the types of things that make you want to go out and make your own fucking movie. And you can tell, even though this isn't perfect, that these guys laughed their ass off making this the entire time. I'll guarantee it. And that's what it's all about.
And good luck finding that picture there. I had to actually take a scan of the original cover that I have. That was very. You would not be able to find that online, right? Well, you might in the future, but not now.
You will. I'll make sure to upload it somewhere, Internet Archive, something, just so that there's a standalone, like, good downloadable version of it.
I'm actually debating.
This is the first movie I've ever ran across, dude, that I've not been able to find DVD art or some type of a poster or promotional post or something about.
I might have to upload this movie to Internet Archives just so that there's an ability to watch it out there. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do it to YouTube because that feels like I'm taking their movie.
Just don't monetize it. As long as you're not
that's
making
easy.
money
I don't have any.
Yeah. I don't monetize my shit.
I might have to do that. And then put like a disclaimer on it and say, hey, if the owners of this film don't want me to put it up or want to put it up themselves, please let me know and I will gladly take this down. But
they might even want you to send them your rip of it because it'll probably be way better quality than anything they're sitting on. A lot of people lose shit like this when they don't, actively pay attention to it.
But it is worth preserving, I do think. So Cody, was this your first experience with this?
Yeah, which is kind of the thing I really like about this channel. Like, this would never have been something that I either would have stumbled across or even would have thought about watching because I've never played Dungeons and Dragons before, so I know nothing about it. And going off
my way will be changing that, Cody. So go ahead.
Which, I mean, if you look at that poster art, that's one of the things that we are all suckers for. We'll give a movie a chance based on that cover art, even knowing that nothing remotely near that will be in the movie, but you still fall for it because there's still that hope. Being somebody that, of course, knew nothing about the game, I still was able to enjoy it because you could tell that they were having fun doing it, even though it was a DIY thing. Like, if you put effort into it, like, that'll overcompensate for your budget and your camera skills and all of that, because at least you're putting your all into it and you're doing the best you can with what you have. And I thought the demon character was hilarious. Like, definitely the highlight of the movie, and the fact that I didn't even watch the trailer until just now. It's like that Michael Jackson-esque song was pretty bumping.
Yeah, I need that on a disc ASAP so I can rock that in my car, man. You want to fight evil? D&D. It's so good.
Well, this is, of course,
so
not
overall,
my.
you enjoyed it though, bud?
I liked it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Like, it was. You mentioned that they made another one. Now I kind of want to see if I can find that to see what they did with their other movie they did.
Not
Dungeon
hard. I
Rubber,
have
man.
it. Yeah.
I still say that is a great band name, and I very well may repurpose that at some point. I think it would be like a fun leather bondage nerd band or something if you. It's just it's too good not to use, you know. And as far as I know, that movie is the only thing using that title. It was the only thing I can find. So yeah. Or at least the title of a song or something, Dungeon Rubber. It conjures up all types of images of like obviously dungeons, but also dudes in like geek suits, you know, living in crates or something like that. Some fucking Pulp Fiction shit. So yeah, I like it a lot. I think that this movie it benefits a lot too from having that sort of cold open thing where it's all the news reports about D&D. I think that benefits someone like Cody or anybody that's not super familiar with the game because it'll immediately kind of injects a little bit of that everyman's viewpoint of D&D into it. Because I'm sure we all can remember a time when that stuff was thought of as like, you know, sort of controversial a little bit. It's really only in the last 10 years that D&D has became like the type of thing people are just playing at the card shop right next to the Yu-Gi-Oh kids or whatever, like out in the open. It sounds like even back in the day when you guys were doing your role playing, you kind of had like a back room at the shop kind of a thing at some point.
We were at
it
the
was
front
not the monumental thing it is now, you know.
Well, we used to be at the front, but that was because the owner of the store was running the game or would be there with us. So, you know, that helped. But this particular film for me, this definitely is not the first experience I had with it because I've enjoyed it a couple of times. I was an avid gamer from the 90s up to, today, sort of. I mean, I have a game that I play in maybe once or twice a month. But I like these films. The Gamers was the first time I got experience with this type of film before, where they did it, and I think it really was. It might have been the first of its genre, or at least the first to meet the public eye when it came to, you know, people who like to do games, and then a lot of copycats came out behind it.
Yeah, and this is definitely among them. I mean, you can
yes.
for sure tell that this is in that first wave of movies that was inspired by the Gamers. It's not done quite as well. Obviously, the Gamers had some real cinematic touch to it. But I mean, I think that this has its own tone to it that makes it, you know, unique.
It's its own animal. It really is. And I was impressed by it. The special effects were not the best, but at the same time, neither were they in the Gamers, tell you the truth. This is a slightly lower budget, but if you look at the second one, I don't know, Mo, did you get to watch the second one yet?
I haven't yet. I'm saving that bad boy for when we cover it because I'm assuming we will at some point.
Perhaps in the future, definitely. And one of these days, I'll probably bring it up again on Inside Movies Galore. But this one, the second one actually ups the game. It even has some animation in it, which is kind of cool. So, but I knew from what they did, obviously it was on the small scale because I know they didn't get full permission for any of the stuff that they used in this. So it wasn't even on the size of the scale that the Gamers would be. But I just enjoy this. I've gotten to really have a love for B movies, and this one counts. So when you talk about Schlockaholics, I think this is definitely the kind of film that fits that category.
A prime fucking candidate, dude. Any movie where goddamn Boglin is the principal character. I think it's just kind of, you know, by default falls under our sort of umbrella here. And I'm super glad that you recommended it. And also, I think these movies, they serve as a good gateway to D&D. Like, Cody might be more inclined to try it with us now after seeing this or maybe a couple more of these than he would have just hearing us talk about it, because it's kind of hard to really illustrate the goofy fun that you can have playing D&D. But when you see movies like their whole reason they were inspired to make this was because they fucking loved getting together and playing D&D so much, you know. And this reeks of one of those films that was made first and foremost just to make each other laugh, you know. and as much as I'd love to make movies and put them out there for people, I think this is the kind of stuff that I would probably make most frequently, especially if we all lived near each other. It'd be like, let's just shoot a barbecue movie, you know, where you have like a dumb idea and we put together a bunch of props and make the fucking dumb little video. It's more of a home video than a proper movie, you know what I mean? Because it's just to make us fucking laugh. And if other people find it cool, then cool, you know. These guys were operating under very much the same spirit as stuff like Chris Seaver. They just weren't as like schooled at doing it yet, you know, which is a shame that they didn't do a lot more of these. If these guys had kept it up doing these like from this until now, they'd probably be masters of the shit at this point. Might even have like an original series on Tubi or something, you know, but there was no way to know that back in 2006. So they probably did a couple of these and then just kind of moved on with their lives, as a lot of people are wanting to do that. You know, we're doing these back then.
Well, let's go ahead and launch on in. Of course, we start off with our GM, who is. I actually kind of like how they did the GM in this. It's they made him sort of like a mystical wizard type. Yeah. And they give him legit powers, essentially.
It was in his honor that I tried to get some tabletop themed drinks. I couldn't find any, so I just went with Fireball. You know, it's like a spell, right?
So you know, he actually creates a demonic circle and summons a demon from hell, and puts him in that little spirit box. And you see the box that he's at the table in the trailer. That's
okay. Let's not gloss over the fact, though, that he summons him with a Big Mac box and puts it in the microwave.
Puts it in the microwave.
666 on the microwave. Fucking loved it. Instantly knew I loved the movie. Like right there.
And this, of course, summons Boglin. And like I said, the binding is in the little box tray that they have for him until he basically makes his demands, which were you have to play this character. So he's compelled to roll up this character, which is a paladin. Now, a Boglin is actually a great tool for something like this because, I mean, these are critters that were partially made by people who worked with Jim Henson. So these are actually fairly legit quality puppets, especially the first round of them. I mean,
even the new ones aren't bad, and they've made them like way less articulate than they used to be. But you can kind of cheat it and still get some of those facial expressions with the Boglins that they were able to do in this, like where you make the eye bulge out and stuff. I'm actually real impressed with how well the new gen of Boglins are produced. We've got like 4 or 5 of them at this point, and I'm hoping to get the last of them.
But they have him roll up, of course. It's kind of funny how they do it. Like he gets a 1 in strength on 3d6, which is very impressive considering as normally you can only roll a 3 on 3 6-sided die if you're doing 3 of them at the same time. But
Cody's just looking blankly ahead, like, oh, that was one of those jokes I didn't get because I'm not a fucking nerd. Like, it was immediately funny to us because it's like you can't do that. It's impossible. Go ahead, Brandon.
And of course, what makes it funny, and they do explain this later on, is that a paladin is a holy knight of good. And of course, having a demon play a holy knight of good, and you later discover he's not just a knight of good, but he's apparently a knight of Christianity.
Yeah.
And I might have to actually check this out because these cats are destroying my printer. But any case, what did y'all think of the character of the GM and the Boglin while I'm trying to chase these guys off my delicate equipment here?
I thought the GM was cool, you know. He's basically that. I think he might have been the guy in this group of friends that actually played D&D like regular. Not to judge a book by its cover or anything, but he definitely gave me that vibe of several D&D people I've known that were like hard into it. The other friends very much seemed like they were the friends that play with him and, you know, were down to do this movie because they knew it would be a goofy good time. But I liked him. The Boglin is easily the standout character of the film because he's got a lot of funny lines, and I'm assuming it was just the kid that was working the puppet that voiced him, or they all just took turns working the puppet when they needed to. But at a certain point in the movie, it is revealed to be attached to our Hobbit friend, or the midget, as they call him in the movie. And I thought that was pretty funny. Like, at a certain point, they just give up pretending that it's an autonomous character. I thought that one of the weak points of the film was the little spirit box that they put him in. I mean, I get that they probably thought, well, we'll just make it super shitty and it'll be funny, right? But I feel like they could have put some more time into crafting that to make it look like old or magical. I mean, I could have whipped up something better in like 20 minutes with some FPS foam in my fucking garage, you know? So it still would have looked shitty, like on movie standards. It would have had that, it would have that B movie quality, but it wouldn't look like they just cut up a fucking Amazon box and put some Elmer's glue on it, you know? So one of the, I mean, like, there's a balance you have to strike making movies like this, where you make the stuff intentionally kind of shitty, but you make it look like you put a little bit of work into it, you know what I mean? So that was the only thing that was disappointing about their whole intro or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. You got anything on that, Cody?
Like you were saying with the Gamesmaster, if you don't know, that would be your stereotypical, that's how all those people look kind of thing.
Yeah,
but I mean, he also
Dahmer glasses.
on the flip side though, he looked like he was having a blast and very much into what he's doing. And if you enjoy what you're doing, who cares what other people think? And I wonder if the demon thing was almost just a, hey, it's too hard to shoot around, that we're not working this hand puppet, and they just said screw it and just we're gonna just show it because it's hard to work around, or if the plan all along was just to ease into it, just being that guy. I mean, who knows? But I mean, he was definitely
a funny reveal when it happens,
right?
You know?
I mean, he was definitely the highlight of the show, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or not, but if you notice in a few scenes, he was missing an eye and then it would come back.
Well, yeah. He got the eye back when he executed his plan and became evil and all, well, you know, as it goes to the movie. But I thought it was interesting. I think the box was created to hide the arm behind him, which I agree with Cody. I think they just gave up on that idea about halfway through and just like, yeah, heck with it, we'll just show the arm. But we also
interesting little factoid for people out there that, I mean, because it's easy to take for granted how movies are actually made when you're watching big budget stuff. But when you watch a lot of low budget stuff, you could see some of those seams or like the different logic as it forms while they're making the movie. And sometimes these movies are even largely, especially these backyard ones, before they know how to make a movie, are shot in sequence. You know what I mean? So it's like they're actually sort of shooting the scenes in the order that they happen in the movie, which is just generally a thing you don't want to do when you're shooting films. It's, you know, there's various benefits to shooting out of sequence and then piecing it together later. You get the harder stuff done, or you save the harder stuff for after the fact so you could focus on performances or whatever. It allows you some leeway to like focus on certain things specifically instead of having to put the whole movie together on the fly as you're going. But these were kids clearly making this. So they made the little spirit box at first, and then, yeah, I think Cody's probably 100% correct in that they eventually just gave up. But it also led, like, they played into them giving up. So the reveal feels like it's an intentionally funny reveal, you know?
Right.
So kudos to them for doing that, for sure.
Oh,
it's a good touch.
So we have our other gamers also that appear. I wasn't as certain about the names of the characters because I'm terrible with names and there's no IMDb page to cheat off of this time. So I'm just going to throw out their general stereotypes because that's really what you know them for. You had the one guy, in quotation marks, who plays the half kobold, half ogre, which is another kind of inside joke for those who know what a kobold is. And these people are obviously playing second edition D&D. So the kobold is essentially a little chihuahua man. And so imagine a chihuahua and a giant going at it, and the child that results for that, which I think is funny. And this character plays that.
Imagine like an anorexic Michigan dog man. That's what a kobold is, basically. they're gross. I've never liked the species. You know, there's a lot of them in EverQuest as well. Sorry to.
Yep. And so this person plays the character as an asshole, essentially, who they just do what they want in game. You know, that's it. And they know they're the strongest. They know that they can take out anybody physically, so they know they can get away with doing pretty much anything.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of that joke on your gung ho. Every group has that gung ho friend that more often than not has really lucky rolls that is able to just fucking derail sessions because they're like, oh, I'm strong and dumb and I just want to kick ass and I'm going to do whatever I want, and then they get you in all kind of trouble. There's other ways to get people into trouble when playing D&D. I've been guilty of most of the other ones, but never that one. You know,
you have the one that plays the elf. And he's kind of a rules lawyer. Well, no, not kind of. He is the rules lawyer of the group, which is
100%.
the player who basically quotes every rule, and usually to the annoyance of the Gamesmaster at the time. It's like, you can't do that. It says here on page 55 that, you know, that kind of person.
Yes. Again, you know, for the education of folks like Cody and some of our listeners, it's a person that exists in every D&D group at some point. My cousin is that dude, and constantly I have to tell him, like, look, motherfucker, the rules are loose suggestions for me to follow. At the end of the day, I'm the rules, you know. And like they say in this, your guys' actions kind of dictate how the rules are modified, or, you know, it's just supposed to be the structure of the game, but you always got that dude that's quoting the rules. And I think all of us have encountered that even outside of D&D, like just playing tabletop games in general. You've always got that person that's like fucking hung up on some technicality in Monopoly or something like that. And it's like, who cares? We've been playing this way and it works for all of us. It's just not working for you now, or you just feel the need to throw a wrench into this. Like, just shut the fuck up. Did you also get sort of Chris Chan vibes from the dude? I think the combination of his dress and just the general way he looked and the voice, he reminded me a lot of Chris Chan. Which, if you're not familiar with the saga of Kristen Weston Chandler, you should take a dive down that rabbit hole, because trust me, you'll never be the same again. But yeah, I liked him, man. I mean, it's funny because we've dealt with it, and I would hope that it would be at least somewhat relatable even to like Cody or anybody that's played games like that. Because hell, maybe you've been that guy at some point, Cody. Are you a rules lawyer? Are you one of those dudes?
No, I'd go with the flow.
Yeah, it's like, who cares when you collect the $200 or what the hell that means? You know, that's, I think, the most fudged rule in all of Monopoly, and there's always someone that's trying to tell you how it actually is, and it's just like, you know what? It's house rules, bro.
Right.
It's just played however whoever owns the board. That's the way we do it. It's $200. Who cares? You know.
Yeah.
Just get over it.
You also have the other individual who is playing the midget thief, and it's actually kind of funny because I had thought originally at first they were doing it to avoid copyright, but as the time went around, I'm like, there's no way in heck they're doing this to avoid the copyright. They're doing it, to me, I think they're doing it as a play on the original D&D. I apologize for any background noise. I'm hoping to avoid it here.
You're good.
In original D&D, they called halflings hobbits, but Tolkien sued them, so they changed them to halflings. Same thing for Kender, because, again, they couldn't call them hobbits, so they had to call them Kender. So,
but is halfling even does Wizards of the Coast or D&D even own that? Like,
well, I think they were doing that just to basically
make a joke about the original.
Yeah, because they use pictures, almost every picture they have, and they tell you where they source the pictures from at the end, but I almost guarantee you they did it without permission. I mean, they used the David Bowie song. Actually, they used multiple, but the David Bowie song is the one that always sticks out in my head.
During that montage? Or no, what's the song during that montage? Is that the Bowie song?
It's that one at the end about the gnome. The Laughing Gnome is an early Bowie song.
See, I gotta admit, I'm very new to David Bowie.
But yeah, all of the stuff that they play is interesting in that. But this guy, has two characteristics. He's the thief who steals everything, so he's having fun with his character, but at the same time, he's also that person who's overly into his character and is deeply attached to his character. He wrote an entire novel, it looks like, on his character, which teaches Boglin, if you have backstory, you can go around and do what you want.
Yeah. You can kind of force it's. I appreciate people that get that into it, but then at the same time, it almost feels like a way to try and game the game, if you know what I mean. Like it tries to fix in certain aspects of stuff that haven't even happened yet, because then you can just reference this predetermined entire fucking history that you've written, and it's like it doesn't leave room for improvisation, I think, or it leaves less room for it with them, because they did all the improv without you when you weren't even at the table.
Well, I used to do that all the time.
There's no way to like create a, Go ahead.
I'd have 30-page backstories on some characters back in the day. I don't do that now. I don't have the time. But
Christ, bro.
Yeah. My very
I'm one of those
first
dudes. I write like 3 paragraphs and I'm good.
See, my first character, I had written a 170-page book on, because I was going to publish it in high school, and then the book got lost on early computer software.
I mean, that's fine if you're going to publish it, as long as you don't expect the motherfuckers at the table to be familiar, with it every Saturday. Because if you got like more than 3 paragraphs, I'm going to forget anyways.
But yeah,
I like to write the story as it goes. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of I've always taken probably the most issue with those type of players, because it's like, let's make our own history together here. Let's figure it out as we go. Let the ideas naturally flow into you as circumstances present them. So when you have someone that's got it all already written out, there's no room for discovery for anyone,
Well,
or
in all
at
fairness,
least for them, Good.
In all fairness to Boglin, he's a demon. You expect him to do that sort of thing. But
he did it 100% to game the game, but we'll get there.
So they arrive and they all give their tributes to the GM. I could only wish that's how I was treated as a GM, but
I've always bought all the snacks and the beverages, so I might have to institute a tribute system, though. If you want to buy into the game, you got to bring at least like a fucking bag of chips or something, so you're not eating all my fucking Tostino's pizza rolls. That's
bring all these sodas.
Instead of BYOB with beer, it's like BYOB with bags. Bring your own bag of fucking chips, because I don't want to feed you mine.
I do like to have they start him out by just downing an entire 2 liter of soda.
What brand of soda was that too? Where's this even made? Is this like some Midwest shit or like some East Coast shit? Because I didn't recognize that at all.
Well, that was a generic one of some sort. Like, I don't know where, but
right. But I mean, even those you become familiar with, like Shasta and crap like that, or Sam's Choice. Like, I know those, but what was it, like Spurts Cola or something like that?
Yeah, we used to do like Big K and stuff like that back in the day, or like Dr. Peppy or something. I can't remember what it was. It was all these like rip-off ones. It's
RC Cola is probably my favorite cheap soda, I guess, if I had to pick one. I don't know. You guys got a favorite cheap soda?
Oh, I love RC, because RC was originally a competitor for the Big Two. So
but they've fallen pretty far now. Usually, unfortunately, around here, the only times I can get it is if I go to like a random vending machine in like some Roach Motel tweaker complex, where it just still exists there, and some mystery person from days gone by still comes and stocks it. It's like when you find a Homies machine in the wild still, and it's like, oh, holy shit, like these fucking RC Colas might be expired, but I'm gonna drink it anyways. I don't know. Tab, I feel like, is kind of like a cheaper one too, or at least it tastes cheap. Shasta was a big deal, especially for the period of time that we lived in Montana, which was only like 9 months, but my God, did I drink a ton of Shasta during that time.
Yeah, I grew up on Shasta.
So is that like sort of, where do you live again, Cody? I always forget.
Oklahoma. It's easy to forget.
Oklahoma. Yeah, that Panhandle State or whatever.
Yeah.
Hey,
I drove through
I
there
marketed
once.
Shasta for a while. I was working for somebody that marketed it, so I got to sling Shasta for a
Damn,
little
dude.
while in my early 20s.
Yeah, you're a few years older than us too. You might have sold us some Shasta.
It was it was to me. I got to learn to hate it, except there was a kiwi strawberry that was an amazing flavor, and you could never find it.
Right, because it's good, because it was actually good and it was cheap, so people would buy the fuck out of it. Fago, I think, is another one of those. I've never had Fago, but I imagine since ICP is so hyped on it, and I've met so many people outside of I'm not a fan of ICP, but I've met like lots of people that are ICP fans, which is fine, that love it, and lots of people that aren't that also love it. It leads me to believe it's a pretty good like mid-range soda. I ask because gaming nights or slumber parties or whatever, cheap soda and like off-brand shit is a staple of that, because your parents weren't going to spring for a bunch of
Right.
like actual Pepsi Cola for you and your friends to just waste, so they get you the cheap shit, and some of it's good and some of it's not so good.
Oh, 2 liter would
Mountain
last.
Lightning comes to mind.
We get like a 2 liter each on the early nights, and what we do is we take pixie sticks and we dunk the pixie sticks in the Mountain Dew, and we would we would be on a sugar high for most of the night.
That's
Our,
wild, man.
our original gaming nights are like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We would just do like a 12-hour sprint for our gaming nights like once every week when we were like heavy into it.
I wish, man. We could never secure a kitchen table that long. We'd get kicked the fuck out at like 10 o'clock at night,
Well, we had places. We had a basement. We had an old shed that we used to camp out at.
Hell
That was
yeah.
there. It was we had some
But
pretty
that
cool
shed
places.
smelled great with all those fucking nerds there.
Well, all of our gaming group members showered, so I can't really say about that.
Still, though, when you're young boys, there's a funk associated with it that you get accustomed to because you're young boys. But then your mom comes in the basement and she's like, "God damn, open a window or something." And then there's that certain period as a high school kid where you can pass your weed smoking off as that at first if you have real naive parents. Like, "Oh, sorry, we got the bad BO down here today." It's not the bong hits at all.
But
Yeah, man. I mean, we never had the time. We never had the space for that. Unfortunately, they were always like 5-hour sessions, maybe.
Oh yeah. Well,
But every kid has grown up with some cheap soda and snacks. So shouts out to all your guys. So let us know in the comments below what your favorite cheap soda is. I think if I had to land on one, I'm going to revise it. RC Cola is more of a niche thing. I would say Shasta is my favorite cheap cola, and then like seconded by Sam's Choice. Just the cola, though. The other Sam's Choice stuff is ass, but the plain cola is fine.
Well, at least with Shasta, you had a variety. I mean, there was like any given time, at least 10 different flavors.
That's
Yeah,
what
they
Fago
seemed
was
like
too.
exactly. That's what I was going to say. They seemed like they were like the outside of Michigan's answer to Fago was basically Shasta. You guys remember the Mario soda? Since we're on
Yes.
gaming and sodas,
Yes.
those were
Of
fucking
course.
so good, dude.
Yes.
And okay, true story. Me and my fucking brother once, my older brother, he doesn't live with us anymore, but that motherfucker was like fighting over it. It was a Princess Peach Cola. I don't know why it was like that. Wasn't even the good flavor. I think it was like, I don't even remember what it was, but it was the worst one. I think my favorite was the Donkey Kong one, and then the Mario one, and then the Luigi and Princess Peach were like you'd drink them if you had to. But we're in this kiddie pool at a barbecue, and we were too old for the kiddie pool at this point. It was like a family reunion type thing too. So there's all of our relatives around us, and for some reason, just being shithead kids, we decided to get in this fucking argument over this Princess Peach Cola, and he's trying to steal it away from me, like in the kiddie pool. We're in the kiddie pool having this, so it was like some lame version of little kid mud wrestling almost. Where like he's trying to steal this fucking last Princess Peach Cola from me, and for some reason, my dumbass thought it would be like smart to stick my thumb inside the hole to try to hold on to the can, and when he jerked it away, it like took that whole top layer of my fucking thumb skin off with it. And so that it went from us just being like obnoxious kids to me just fucking crying and sobbing in the middle of this family reunion. And I think my parents just basically told us to fuck off, like go put a Band-Aid on it and shut the fuck up. You guys are being idiots. Like there's more soda in the house kind of a thing. But yeah, I'll forever have that trauma attached to those. But I do really miss those. I wish they'd bring them back. That was a fun soda tangent, though. Apologies for that good beers. Hopefully it brought you some fuzzy memories. Continue, Brandon.
Well, essentially, one of the cooler things that you get out of this is it does a good job of illustrating to Boglin, essentially, what D&D is, because he doesn't quite understand it. And then the GM says something, and automatically he is in this fantasy world with all of the his fellow player characters. And it's actually kind of funny because you got the guy who's playing the midget just sitting there on his
knees. Yeah, I love it.
It's like you're wearing plate mail.
Great.
And
the plate mail was amazing too. I don't know how more of us didn't make our own plate mail out of our kitchens, pot and pans as kids, you know.
So he has his little magic sword, and they illustrate. And they basically do a kind of just a great illustration of what it's like to be in the battle and kind of the feel of it. Because when you're a player, that's essentially what it is. You feel like you're right there in the moment, in the fight. And it's, in my opinion, quite fun. I really liked how they did that. I don't know. What were y'all's thoughts on that particular scene when they were illustrating the fight with all of that and showing Boglin how it's done?
Well, I'm going to let Cody go first, since, you know, obviously my thoughts will be somewhat similar to yours in that I played. But what were your thoughts on it as like a layman or an outsider to D&D, Cody?
Are we talking about the montage? Or the part where he's got like the aluminum trash can lid and like
where they're out there doing the battles and stuff.
Oh, I thought it was funny. It was hilarious. Like that's working with what you've got, and maybe even going towards the absurdity of maybe how some people would take when they play those games, I guess. Kind of speaking out of turn here, but from an outsider, I could see the fun in it, the enjoyment, and I liked it.
It all boils down really to when you're playing pretend as a kid too, right? Like we've all dorked around like that out in the snow in the backyard or whatever. I think the main thing for me in the scene was that they shot it out in the snow, and they're all just wearing like regular clothes, and you can tell by the way it's all shot and put together that they spent a considerable amount of time out there in the snow, which was cool. It's a lot to do for a movie of this scale, you know.
Oh yeah.
And it, like you said, Brandon, it does kind of really take you back to the excitement of doing it. There really is, in my mind, on a gaming level, nothing more exciting than D&D. What turns people off to it is the tediousness of the character creation and some of the mathematics. But if you're playing with a proper DM that, you know, cherry picks rules that fit the group they're playing with, I guess. I'm by no means an expert, but I feel like I've got a good system down. You kind of have to just use the rules and tailor them to your needs, you know, but to a way where they still make sense and sort of, you know, control the game.
And that's also where Boglin fits in, because Boglin is the one that doesn't know the game. So they're also teaching Boglin how to play the game as he goes. And that's how a lot of people who are new to it tend to do it. Most people who are new to it are not like, oh, I've read the books like 50 times and now I'm down to go. No, usually it's you get invited to the game. It's like, I have no idea what they're doing. So don't worry, we'll walk you through. And then they just start to, okay, roll here. Okay, that's good. That means that you hit, or that means that you did that. And
right.
It really is about the feel of how a new player would do it. Unfortunately for him, he comes on real quick to realize that a paladin is very different. When everybody else gets like big shares of the loot, and the paladin gets like one like gold piece, and that's because he has to tithe all the rest. He can't keep
teething.
Yeah, which they don't harp on as much in the rules these days, but in second ed, which they're basing it off of, it's and they love taking the character, basically the pictures out of the books and transposing them for little scenes too, which is funny. But which they didn't do at first, because one of the reveals was showing Boglin. It's like, no, this is what your character, this is what you look like.
Yeah, I love that shit.
And he's just like, oh my god. Or she's like,
I love how it's in the real world context too. Like he comes into the bathroom, the game master just fucking ambushes him in the bathroom, and he's like, "You think that's how you see yourself, huh? Well, this is what you really look like." And it's like this fucking shitty fucking classic like paladin photo. It's great, man. It's such a perfect gimmick for the Boglin character, because he's a demon, and it's just hilarious to think about a demon forced to play a good character, you know. And it's also the whole movie really is a fun because play on the whole satanic panic thing too. They thought we were like summoning demons playing the stuff.
Yeah.
But if you were to actually summon a demon to play D&D with you, this movie's pretty fucking accurate to how it would end up, you know. Because you're not just going to give him free reign to ruin your fucking session like he eventually does later.
Yeah, I think he would have been okay if they'd given him like a more harmless character to play with a general rule set. But I also think they kind of baited what happens later by giving him so much restrictions. It ended up catapulting to the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But
they made him want to rebel against it. I mean, there was that small part of me, or if like you did this maybe on a bigger, larger budget scale, you could even have it where Boglin gets like actually kind of used to playing the character and starts to like it a little bit. But then at the end, like the game master does some crazy shit to him where they need Boglin to go full evil, and he does, but then he accidentally fucking kills all of them too, like when he gets swept up in it. And so it's just like, oh shit, whoops, you know. That would be a fun way to take it if you did a bigger version of this. And you could almost see like he was starting to have fun part of the way through the movie, it seemed like.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you'll see this in the second film, where it stars the demon again, and the demon is doing everything he can to get back to the game. And that's no spoiler, because that's just where it is. And
you can see he developed a taste for it in this for sure.
Because even with the restrictions, you can tell that they start to get a rhythm. At first, it just goes to show you what kind of players they are. Like the elf character's kind of useless in a lot of ways. The thief, he ends up stealing all of Boglin's gold, which they don't really play lawful good very well in that game, because if he understood how lawful good worked in the game, he'd have cut down at least 2 of those members a long time ago, because he would have been allowed. It's like, you're stealing, you're attacking me. Well, guess what? I can attack you. I can take you down. Like
Sure
where
enough.
the
yeah, I haven't thought of that.
Where that I do find it funny that they had the ogre shooting him with arrows from behind the rock, saying he's taking a leak, and then peeing on his own like bow. Just like, I'm just,
that was probably my spoiler alert, probably my favorite scene in the movie. Just back there pissing on her short bow.
But yeah, you can take that lawful good and you can make it very if you want to get back at someone,
strengthen the string, I think she says.
Because if he knew that guy was stealing from him, he could easily have like, oh, okay, well, I turn him into the authorities for stealing.
See, you bring up a good point, though, and something I've definitely been guilty of not encouraging when I've ran games is people to, because, I mean, it's sort of almost natural to not apply that sort of behavior to your own party members, because you're not trying to, like, necessarily kill your friends, but you probably should. So I think I'm going to nudge people in that direction when I run games in the future, where it's like, you know, you could technically do this, dude, and that guy's fucking with you. He doesn't need to live to the end of this. None of us signed a contract.
Well, but when we get through this, essentially, they do kind of show they get to a little montage of them playing for a while, and Boglin getting used to the running of his character, and them kind of getting used to kind of working together as a team, until they get to a point where Boglin's like, hey, wait, how are you able to do this? And he's like, oh, it's in my backstory. He pulls out this giant tome that
What
this
did he
guy
call
wrote
it?
about the character.
The
Something
the
Nomicon. It was
midget.
like,
Well, the Hobbit dude's one had a sweet name though too. It was like the Foot Pendium, I think, was or Foot Padium or whatever was like, instead of
yeah.
compendium, it was the Foot Padium. I think it was just a midget Foot Padium or whatever, but it was like this Bible thick book that he had written about his character, you know. So Boglin ends up staying up, pulling an all-nighter while everyone else just sleeps during the rest period at the table, which I thought was pretty fucking funny. There's rest periods in D&D, Cody, where, you know, stuff happens, or you know, various periods of downtime that are arbitrated in different ways, you know. But they just sleep at the table during that one, which I thought was pretty comical. But fucking Boglin does due diligence and stays up all night writing his backstory.
So Cody, you've watched how these groups working together. What do you think of how they work together as a group?
I
mean, could you imagine this group in Lord of the Rings?
Right. I know that's a tough call. I mean, it seems like they mean well at times, and other times it's almost just trying to sabotage each other. Which, I mean, it's you're all in it for yourself, right? At the end of the day.
I think you just kind of nailed D&D right on the head.
I mean,
that's kind of how role playing works.
Wouldn't you love to read about the ever occurring adventures of the Paladin Sucksface?
Well, of course.
Great name, by the way. I wish I could add that as like my username and random kinky chats I was involved in as a teenager. That would have been quality stuff. You don't hear people say suck face anymore. That's one of those terms that has kind of fallen out of fashion, you know. It's not bad, it's just not used anymore, you know.
So I guess they end their session at the end of that. So between sessions, Boglin, I guess, is stuck there, I guess indefinitely, to be the plaything of these guys. And he ends up what's the word? He ends up basically writing his own backstory. So he sends them on this quest, and they're all like, heck yeah, we'll get some items out of it.
Well, because he finds in the book the helm of opposite alignment. So if he can get them to help him get this helm, he can become evil. Even though he's supposed to be chaotic or lawful good, he could become what is like chaotic evil or whatever the fuck. Like true evil. So that's his whole plan there, and it's a brilliant one, if I might add.
Let's see here.
Oh shit, he had to step away. What are your thoughts on that whole scheme there, Cody?
I mean, it's brilliant, really.
That's the kind of thing. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that a GM, like a player, will sometimes do to change it. And I think that's the beauty of the game, really, is that people are able to really work towards outwitting the game master, or the game master outwitting the players. You think around corners, and it's kind of fun that way.
It can be. You just got to have a game master that's like fair about it. You know what I mean? Where they're not just constantly trying to find ways in the book to fuck you, you know? Like, I like a game master that's willing to take us there sometimes, but when it gets to be almost like tabletop harassment, which I have participated in, it can be kind of unfun. But the same can come from the other end when players are trying to use the books to game the game master too much. I mean, I like it best when they work together to just create beautiful chaos. That's kind of my ethos when it comes to D&D. Like you have your outline and you take them through it, and you have your traps for them, but at the same time you let them try to set some traps for you. And it's a good back and forth. I think this dude maybe went, like you said, a little too hard into trying to fuck with the Boglin.
Yeah, and that kind of
didn't maybe do his homework enough. Like if he was knowledgeable enough, he could have just said that item doesn't exist in this campaign or something. Because you can, in theory, do that. They're allowed to choose.
I mean, they make him. He makes the Boglin. I think this is one of the last stands. There was he makes the Boglin kiss the feet of Jesus.
Oh my God,
Which,
that is so rough.
And saying that a demon flies up from hell and rips his eye out, which I think is actually a pretty well done scene, considering they're probably working with a zero budget.
Oh yeah, and it introduces a cool concept that you could use again for like a bigger budget remake of this, or maybe one direction you could take it is that they're playing with the Boglin, and all's going well with their lighthearted tormenting of him, but then eventually he tries to enlist the help, or maybe eventually the other fucking demons come to try to punish him, right? So they end up having to fight actual demons together as an actual D&D party.
And they do introduce more Boglin demons in the sequel, which is kind of fun. They definitely either put extra work in it or definitely extra money into the sequel. So let's see. But essentially, one of the things that brought me joy, you have is when he actually lops off the head of the ogre, which I'll admit, I was rooting for Boglin at that point in the game because that ogre character was such a dick. That particular character was a dick, which is kind of funny because it's a female kid playing a male. But
we got to touch on that, okay? Nowadays, a choice like this would be looked at as progressive or something, and it just shows how times have changed. Which back then it was funny to have the girl that they knew play a boy just to play a boy. Just whatever your views on it are aside, it is kind of neat to see a girl playing a guy, and she was one of the most adorable characters in the movie for me because she kept looking at the camera all the time throughout the shooting of it, so it gave it that fun home video dorking around with friends feeling. I don't know if you guys got that at all. But I loved it, man. I mean, she was the highlight of the film for me, in between her being an asshole with her lines, which she delivered with great gusto. So if you're out there listening, we appreciate it, Steven.
I think that the character was played really well. I mean, again, you play a character and they're supposed to be an asshole, and you want that, and you are applauding when that character gets their head lopped off. So there we go. They put on makeup.
See, we can make our own whole fucking universe of these Boglin movies, man. See, this is one of the main issues that they had in the film, which was you could hear the Boglin mechanics working around in there. Oh shit, he's got it. Is that a Triumph right there? Where's the cigar?
I do not have any puppet right here to join with that group. I have the Ginger Dead Man, but he's downstairs.
He's always welcome to join us.
But
the king does come with wings.
I have noticed that the voice that they use for Boglin is actually a typical voice because it's such an easy voice to do. I mean, shoots, that's the voice that I use when I voice Ginger Dead Man in our.
Yeah, it's basically everybody's either tough guy or scary dude impression is sort of the Boglin voice, and especially them being kids adds a comedic element to it, or young people or whatever.
It just
his voice was actually one of the highlights of the movie, I thought, and it was timed really well to his mouth movements. Whoever was working the Boglin had clearly played with it a lot, but you could tell that just looking at it,
But essentially with the helmet, he's able to reverse his alignment. So he was supposed to be this ultra good, ultra non-violent. And I think that's the other thing that they did by trying to focus on him being non-violent on almost all fronts. He was able to then justify being so cruel and malicious when the helmet was on, and manages to use his power to pretty much conquer the world, which kind of doesn't work, because when a paladin would get that, they would lose all their powers and just become a fighter. But fighters also get followers, so it works one way or the other. Yeah, that's second ed D&D knowledge. That's
never played a paladin outside of original World of Warcraft with the Burning Crusade expansion, but they just seem like everybody I've ever known that has tried to play one always seems like they and that is sort of maybe an intentional joke in the movie, but lots of people that try to play paladins are usually like your friend that has like some Lancelot complex or some shit. Or like some white knight fucking tendencies, so they want to be the paladin, but then they realize there's all these like sort of penalties that come along with it. So it's a double-edged sword. They've got some cool abilities and they're tanky, but you know.
And you see the funny thing, and it's another joke that I think is more on the inside, is that back in the day, and this is prior to third ed, so second ed back, the paladin, the ranger, I want to say the druid and the bard were not just regular classes. They were super classes. You had to get excellent stat rolls to play them. So Boglin could never have played a paladin because he had such terrible stats.
Rolled, yeah.
So there's no way he could have done what he did, but he did anyway, which is part of the funny part of this whole movie, if you really want to think about it, because it's just he's doing all of this stuff with a character that's underpowered as hell, but he takes out everybody. One of the other characters, I like how they do the whole you have to wear this like headband that says you're dead on it when they
Oh, that was my favorite fucking thing, dude. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna institute that at my actual D&D games. So they have to just sit there in shame with the fucking bandana of death on. Like that's definitely, I think I'm gonna do that. I thought that was so fucking funny. I think my favorite part of like the game aspect of the movie was really that part between the Hobbit dude or the midget dude and Boglin, where he's explaining to him that like at the end of the day, the rules don't dictate the character. The character dictates the rules.
Oh,
you know, like, but that's in a larger sense really means that the game is fluid. You can do with it what you want. There's at no point in D&D do they ever tell you that the only way to play the game is to just 100% follow their rules. That's what makes it intriguing to me, and is endlessly a creative, like, sort of outlet, if you really wanted it to be, is the fact that you can use that skeletal framework of what they've developed as rule systems and adapt them. I mean, really, if you played D&D at my house, it's probably like 2 parts D&D, 1 part Tunnels and Trolls, and then just freewheeling, like, let's let the dice decide our fates. I'm not going to look up every little thing in the book every time to see how we determine it. It's just like roll off, like they did in this movie, where it's like just roll it off, see what fucking happens. You know, let's all agree on some parameters and then roll some goddamn dice. You know, so that it takes 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. You know, and that's the beauty of it. These guys seem to play a good fast and loose D&D style that I could probably be real comfortable with.
No cat. Okay, cat's trying to mess with my computer again.
She's getting excited because I'm talking that fucking good D&D stuff. She knows what I'm saying. She likes those fast and loose rules too.
That's not your HDMI cord, cat. No.
I cast Fireball.
So every character that dies tends to die out of their own hubris in a way. They all kind of die related. The ogre dies basically as the ogre lived, by basically underhanded violent tactics. The rules lawyer dies after misinterpreting the rules and leaving out 5 feet.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because we had a rules lawyer that died that way. And I remember the GM said, so how far did you say is the, are you away from them? Oh, this far. It's like, oh, it just so happens that the creature has that far a reach.
I love how they play it off too, where he's like, oh, I can do it in 8 moves or whatever. And he's all confident about it, and then Boglin's just kind of like, it's 7, you know, just says it like real casual, and then you can just see the defeat. To his credit, he does admit it. He doesn't try to argue it.
And then there's
my cousin Lance, on the other hand, will sit there and try to rules lawyer you, but then when you call him out on a rule, he'll try to argue with you for like 10 minutes before you just pull out the book and you're like, nope, dude, you're actually wrong, you know.
That's how
So
a
more
real
often than
rules
not,
lawyer
those
does
guys,
it. But yeah.
they're not. Well, they know when to haggle. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
And then, of course, the midget ends up dying by performing and failing his performance. But the most interesting part of all, in my opinion, is how the GM does it, because he's looking for the last one, and he's like, "Oh crap, he's gonna be coming for me next," and then because he's looking for the last of the things, and then he's like, "Ah, I have something." It's like he has this last resort plan, the throne gnome, where there's a gnome that had been living in the tree that he cut down for his throne the whole time. So when he sat down on his throne, the gnome comes out and stabs him in the heart, which of course necessitates the whole laughing gnome musical piece.
Right. And isn't the whole thing with the throne that it was like the last great oak tree in all
Yeah.
plant or something? It's like some fucked up tree that he cut down, like the worst tree that you could cut down. And he just does it just to make a throne. I thought that was a good touch too. Pure evil, you know. I want to eradicate this whole species of tree just to make myself a chair. I fucking love it.
But Boglin dies. Oh, his character dies, and then he is sent back to hell. And
I love it when he's just fucking flying back down into hell too. They did have some rudimentary animation in this.
Yes, they did.
It's like, you know, clip art flash type animation, I guess. I'm not technical enough to know exactly how they did it, but they use it to pretty good effects at a couple of points, like where there's that one scene where they're all standing there and he's like, "You've conquered hell," or whatever, like you're now supremely evil in the game too, and it shows all those demons flying out behind those other demons. It really reminds me of Ralph Bakshi's Wizards for like a brief second right there. Which
and
is
he gets his eye
like,
back for it, so you know.
Yeah, you know,
as
not a
Cody
bad
pointed
reward.
out, he gets his eye back for finally conquering that. It's I think
I
he
didn't
ends
know
up
you could
killing
pop
Jesus.
the eyes off the boglins, and I'm nervous to try it with ours because I could see having some fun, like with those eyes, like putting them in and just like squinting so that they look like they're your eyes or something. You know, it could be fun, but I don't want to break my boglins. You know.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I think they must have really experimented with this. But essentially, that is the movie. It's not long. It's like 45 minutes and
45.
some change.
It's like 42, really, if you excise the credits. It's well under an hour.
So what did any last thoughts on the plot itself?
I think they got what they fucking deserved, dude. It's unfortunate that Boglin died at the end, but we'll be seeing him again, as we all know. So, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think that they sufficiently tormented him to the point where I didn't feel bad that they died. You know, you could argue that this almost is a horror movie in a sense. It's just it lacks a lot of the things that you typically have in horror films, like blood and gore, like actually scary parts. But when you look at the whole structure of it, it is basically a horror comedy, you know, which is a big part of what made me want to see it like remade on a big budget. I still stand by that. If you gave me like $1 million right now, this would be on the short list of indie movies that I'd be like, I could see us remaking the fuck out of this and making it awesome, you know. And that's chiefly why I would have made the death scenes way gorier. I would have done, was it The Gamers, the one where it turns out that their deaths actually affect them in the real world, or am I thinking of a different movie?
Yes and no. The deaths don't necessarily affect them, but they have this weird thing at the end where their characters come out in real life and kill their the players, which
That's
was
what it was.
What happened. But sorry, Cody, I spoiled that for you. But if you want to see The Gamers, that one's easy to find because that's on YouTube right now. But Cody, what did you think of this overall of the plot?
I enjoyed it. Like I said from before, I mean, going into it knowing nothing about any of this, it still held my attention. It was still enjoyment. I got enjoyment enough out of it for the not understanding it as much, not getting. You guys got some of the inside jokes that I didn't, but I still overall enjoyed it. And like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't have came across or even watched this movie had we not started doing this. So that's always a nice part, is figuring out this other stuff that normally wouldn't even come my way. So I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the other one.
Well, let's
Brilliant,
talk
dude.
production.
Stokes me out
value.
that fucking Cody liked it as much as he did.
So I come from a different perspective than you do, Mo. I don't know why, but I feel like the jankiness of this makes this movie better for it, just because
It does. It gives it
does
a
make it
charm,
fun.
you know.
I love
It's
that
just
they
there's
have the
parts
little,
of it that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I love that they have little cutouts of the pictures from the book, and because they don't really fear the copyright issue, they're straight out showing what books they're doing. Whereas in the gamers, they knew that it was going to be big enough that they knew they'd be sued if they did, so they had to cover up their game books and stuff, so you didn't know they were doing second ed manuals.
Right.
But this one was great because they're like, heck with it. We don't care. We know, you know that they're using second ed.
I still don't think the gamers would have been sued. I think that they would have maybe got a cease and desist that they could have just ignored. No one's gonna sue dudes like us for this kind of shit, dude. We don't have any fucking money, you know.
Well, I mean,
you're not gonna
Gamer
sue
movie.
like some dude in his basement making a D&D movie. You're just gonna give him a cease and desist, and he'll either get scared or take it down. Or if he's a true DIY champion, he'll just be like, "Fuck it, it's out there. I don't give a shit. I'm not making money on it." So, you know, at the end of the day, that's neither here nor there. But I think that I like that this has that scrappiness to it. There's certain things, if I had been their friend or helping them make it, I would have been like, instead of the coat hangers with a rubber band, let's, you know, go to the hardware store and get some sturdy wire and like make proper things for the arms, you know. I mean, those little things would have made it just have still a great B-movie fucking feel, but it would have made it feel slightly less just thrown together, which is part of its charm. I'll grant you that. But I mean, I wasn't saying that I would have done that differently as necessarily a criticism of the movie. It's just, it would have been fun to make this stuff, I guess. I don't know. And me saying that I'd like to see it remade on a big budget is not me saying that this isn't fucking rad. It's just, this is great material for that. You know what I mean? Think about it. If you made this movie with like $2 million, hired people like Danny McBride or different comedians to voice different things, or some of these different young comedians that are like in their 30s to play 20 or, you know, 17-year-olds or whatever, it would just, you could make a really hilarious larger budget version of this.
Shoot, Danny DeVito
that would go a long ways.
I can see Danny DeVito.
You could almost make this like a horror comedy version of Grandma's Boys for D&D kids, you know. I mean, like, this could be something crazy if you really, it's great source material was what I was getting at, you know.
So Cody,
whereas something like Axe Grinder, which we covered in our first episode, isn't necessarily the movie you'd be rushing to remake on a big budget if you were to be sourcing from the indie crowd, you know. But something like this has mass appeal if you marketed it right. I mean, look how good that movie Role Models did, and that movie was almost 100% about LARP.
Oh yeah.
You know? So you could make something really cool with this if you had the money to do it, you know. I'd still use a Boglin too. I would just make it like, I would somehow like green screen it or whatever. I'd still want an actual puppeteer in there. I might even hire like a Henson dude to puppet the fucking Boglin in the movie just to make it like as good as it could be, but still have that like, you know, unreal Muppet quality to it. It wouldn't be CGI. There's lots of cool things you could do with this with more money put behind it. And you can't say that about most of these DIY indie films. As much as we like a lot of them, if you remade it with a big budget, it would just be ass. What makes it cool is that it's like on a small budget. But this, as scrappy as it is, has some real potential to be something super fucking big if you really wanted it to be.
Well,
does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, most definitely. I was curious, Cody, about your thoughts as well, because you participate in a lot of these B-movies yourself. So what do you think of the production design?
I have to let my dog out real quick, so I'll be right back. I'm still listening, though.
Okay. Well, Cody, what do you think on that perspective? Because you've seen how some of these are made. What do you think of these compared to some of the other projects you've been on?
I think they worked with what they got, and maybe a lot of those guys, like Mo was saying, maybe they can't build props themselves. So they just kind of like, hey, this will work. I mean, a lot of it's just kind of you need a lot of jack of all trades to make a lot of this stuff happen. So I can appreciate that they worked with what they had, and they look like they enjoyed doing it, which is a lot better than just, I don't know. You'll see that plays a big part in me in these low budget B movies, micro budget movies, whatever you want to call them, that you can, sometimes the budget doesn't dictate the movie. You can still do a lot with very little, and it's all in just kind of the people around you and what you can get with very little money wise.
And these guys are pretty creative. I mean, I would say that it's below the level of something like the Gamers, but I think it's above the level of something like River City Rumble, which was an X Strike Studios film. Now I think X Strike actually increased their stuff as that went on, and they're actually still at the point where you can buy some of their stuff. Their website actually does have it. And they make video game movies essentially. I think you've been on for a couple of the X Strike discussions, weren't you, Mel? I can't remember.
I was. I forget which exact ones. I know I was there for, I believe it was the River City Rumble one. Did you guys do that and like the Silent Hill one or whatever?
Yeah, we covered every single one of the catalogs on Delusions of Grandeur, so we have that.
That's right. Yeah, I think I was only there for one actually. That was.
That was the one Dan was there. Yeah, because Dan was there for
fun stuff. I think you would like them if you have video game fandom, Cody, which I would assume most people do. If you're in our generation, we all played at least games, so I'm sure you would recognize stuff from it. Didn't they also do like a Metal Gear Solid one or something?
Oh yeah, they did a number of them. They did one for Parappa the Rappa. They did a Metal Gear Solid. They did Resident Evil and Silent Hill, River City Ransom, which was the game, and that was their first one. I'm missing one. Oh well, they did a lot.
I think it just boils down to enthusiasm, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always going to come back to that on this show, and if you're making a B movie and it feels like you're just going through the motions to make it because you can, I'm probably not going to be as big of a fan of it as I am films where you can tell that they're just really having fun doing it because they love doing it. It's evident in the final product. You know, it can be something as low budget and scrappy as this. This is, I don't even know if I'd call this a backyard movie, dude. It's like a dinner table movie. You know, it's some kids and some D&D stuff and a boglin. That's the entire movie. And then someone got some music and put it there and like made some rudimentary animations on the side. It's barely a movie, but it's also an awesome movie at the same time. And that it totally succeeds at being what it is, which is a badass like friend movie, you know, that we were privileged enough to showcase tonight. That girl is probably, like I said, my favorite performance in the movie, and half of that is because she keeps looking into the camera at different points, you know, and it's that excited look though. Like, did you get that? Like, they're all excited to be doing what they're doing. It's like when you watch old skate videos and you see that footage where like the younger dudes do a trick and then they look over at the cameraman all the time, like, you got it right, you know. It's like you're stoked on what you fucking did, or else you wouldn't look over even giving a shit that they got it on camera, you know? And then you see some of these B movies where it's like these guys are doing this because they know they can release it to us with dope cover art and we're gonna buy it no matter how shitty it is, you know. And that's the difference. I'm always going to be voting full stars for kids that are doing this shit with like real passion.
What about
much
music?
We love them, anybody can slap on a fucking clown mask, shoot a few kills, throw some tits in there, and use some stock footage. That's not a hard thing to do. We could go do it right now, you know. But to do something we're actually excited about is a whole other ball game, you know. So.
Oh, just wait until I film Amityville webcam, and then we'll talk about how terrible that is on this show. But
I think we're all going to be in it. So
there you go. But
talk about how terrible we all are in it, but it will be fucking amazing fun. You know?
So, well, let's talk about music. I always think about the Laughing Gnome, but that's just because I was a big fan of David Bowie back in the day in high school. So I got most of his catalog back then. All the weird stuff, like that song where he just goes over and over again, sex. and the church. It just says that over and over.
Yeah.
But then his early
heard that
stuff, which
shit.
is this weird campy stuff, and The Laughing Gnome was one of the early like 60s albums he did. And it's just, I don't know. But it also fits with the darn gnome stabbing him at the end. But what do y'all think of the
It
general
does.
music?
Love it. Love it, dude. The montage is my favorite part, which oddly we've only mentioned but not talked about. Cody tried to bring it up again, but let's do it now. That montage is great. It is a highlight of the film for sure. It really drives home that like fun sort of like basement party vibe. We've never had any conga lines at any of my D&D sessions, but I'm thinking I need to change that in the future. I mean, it's just there's them dancing around doing their thing during that montage and playing the game is actually, you did bring it up, but still it bears mentioning again. Just so good. And that, I think that's the first point in the film where like blatantly there's some popular music being used. I still have to research it myself. Unfortunately, I have to admit, outside of like rock music and metal from the 80s, I'm only now starting to really fully appreciate a lot of the stuff back then. And I gotta admit, it is because of the Stranger Things Kate Bush thing. I mean, that set me off on this whole Duran Duran trip, and then I was listening to a bunch of like, In Excess and different shit from back then that I'd only ever heard like a song here or there from. But you start listening to actual full albums, and it's like, holy shit. There's tons of gems, and I guess really you could trace all of that even pre-Kate Bush back to me getting really into Oingo Boingo. Once I was reminded of them again because of the Full Moon movies and stuff. So Oingo Boingo is probably the source of it. Oingo Boingo and Men at Work. I fucking love both of those bands so much. But yeah, there's tons of 80s music that, I was only aware of like the random hit or two that artist had,
And Bowie
but now
is one
that
of
I'm
those
actually starting to dive into it, it's like, goddamn. And then you go further back beyond that with guys like David Bowie, and there's just treasure troves of music that I've never heard.
Yeah, Bowie's one that has everything. He does everything music style wise. So there's usually, I don't know many people who love everything that Bowie did, but I know people who can find something they really love from Bowie, because Bowie switched his styles up so often that you could just be everywhere. But with that being said, I think we gave a good coverage to this. But what about favorite scenes? And actually, why don't we do this also to make this fun? What would be your favorite scene? And which one of the characters, including the GM Boglin, the ogre, the elf, or the midget, which one of these would you most identify with if you were playing in this D&D game? So why don't we go with you first, Mo?
Shit, probably the Boglin, man. I don't know if I'd really vibe with either of those other characters. I guess if I identified with anybody the most around the table, it's probably the guy filming the movie. The guy shooting it, you know what I mean? I don't like either of any of really the characters, the stereotypical characters that they have in here. So it's not damn it, that's twice that's gone off now. I apologize, viewers. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, none of those characters I identify with, because that's not how I play D&D. But I would be friends with them, begrudgingly. But yeah, I guess Boglin. I could see you ending up in a campaign like that as a joke, where it's like, okay, make me the character you think I would like the most hate playing, and I'll try to play it with you just for fun. Paladin would rank pretty high on that list. Yeah. Fuck that.
What are your thoughts, Cody?
I would probably go Boglin, just because I like to try to be the comic relief in situations with my friends. I would go favorite scene would be montage, because I'm a sucker for a good montage. Makes me think of the Team America. Makes me think of Team America when they do the montage song. Like, it's just every time that's what goes in my head.
Weirdly, that's the part of the movie that made me want to get like friends together and just do something in my basement. Didn't need to be D&D, but just something, you know. It's like,
Right.
fuck yeah, that's good basement vibes right there. Like just hanging out, you get so excited all of a sudden you do a dance line. Like, I've never had it happen, but I think I can maneuver it into place, you know. One day, maybe you'll be part of one.
And your favorite scene, Mo?
I don't know if I have like a favorite scene. Maybe, I don't know. Do I have a singular favorite scene? I mean, other than like the obvious stuff, like, you know, the montage, obviously I agreed with that, but I don't know, man. I think maybe that part where he does tell him, like, you know, I would show your mother your corpses in hell or whatever. Like, I really like that fucking line for some reason because it's just awesome. You know, it's so savage, such a savage thing for a demon to say, but also it comes across so comedic. I don't know if I have like a singular favorite scene. I just kind of like it as a whole. It's such a short movie, though. So.
I mean, I would say for me, it's that turning point where basically he finally wins out after all of the kind of bullying and stuff they've done to his character. He finally turns the tables with him ending up cutting the ogre's head off.
Yeah, that is pretty fucking epic.
That just, to me, it keeps sticking out as like, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, no, I lie. I kind of mentioned it earlier. Well, I'm sure I already said one scene that was my favorite at some point, but that was just more of a reactionary, like, yeah, that scene is fucking amazing. I think my favorite probably is that one where he's talking to the Hobbit and he's explaining to him that, like, you know, your character, he doesn't even say your character. He says character dictates the rules. The rules don't dictate the character. And I didn't even take that as more so like explicitly aimed at them as players. I took that as aimed at D&D as a whole. And I really take that to heart as someone who's an aspiring GM, you know what I mean? Because maybe it's like a, you know, sort of like a heavy metal punk rock, like fuck the rules sort of thing. But I am a very adaptive like GM. I just take the rules that I think I can use that would make it interesting. I don't give a fuck about like the letter of the law. You know, I'll take a goddamn, you know, any type of RPG rule set you want to send me. If it has like cool rules, I'll use the fucking rules from the Harry Potter fucking board game and my goddamn D&D. Like if it's a cool rule or a cool dice rolling mechanic or way to determine something, I'll use it. I don't give a fuck. And I think that's part of the beauty of tabletop gaming is that at the end of the day, you're using these things to make a game, but it's your game. It's nobody else's game. It doesn't belong to Milton Bradley or Wizards of the Coast or anybody the fuck else. You've used these different mathematic tables and mechanics to make your own story that you're helping to tell with the assistance of other people. And I think it's real cool. So that's my favorite portion of the movie, or the favorite moment in the movie, is just that exchange, because it's true shit to D&D in my mind. Well,
I think we've managed to run this through. If you want to look up Breakfast for Demons is the name, and they do have a YouTube channel, but it hasn't been updated in many years. But you can find some of the trailers for this stuff and a couple of the animated scenes from the second movie. And maybe I'll try in the future and throw these up. And if any of you who are involved in this movie do have have seen this, and you want and you ever want to talk about this stuff, or you want me to say, hey, I've got these files digitized if you want them again, if you've happened to lose them, because I know I've lost stuff I've had for a while and can't get it again. Hey, hit me up. I've got these sitting here in the digital archive, so I could easily throw them your way. And I would love to see these back in circulation again, with y'all making some money off of this. Until then, I want to try and get the word out there. So hopefully they will, and maybe they will make money off of this in the future.
And here's the deal, folks. Whether it's just making a write-up on Facebook or making your own horror movie blog or, making your own YouTube videos, whether they're podcasts or individual reviews, it doesn't have to have high production value. Just has to have like good representation of the imagery and, your opinions on the stuff. Get out there and document indie stuff that you see, because you never know when you're going to run across something like this that was a rad little piece of like tabletop nerddom in the early 2000s and early indie films of the modern age that's largely forgotten. That is legitimately what you see on the screen there, the best image of even the cover art for this thing. This movie is lost to time if it wasn't for us talking about it right now. And I think that that's pretty fucking cool. So you should just always, for the sake of posterity, record your thoughts, put the word out there about these things, make some type of an entry about it on the internet so that it exists in some fashion. That would be my advice. So, what about you, Cody?
Yeah, for sure. And kind of to repeat a little bit, like we could always do a episode 2.5 if anybody from this reaches out. Then we could do a little quick little interview companion piece to this. That would also be fun. I don't know where we're at on this episode, but I know you get the next episode. So before we end it, I definitely want to close out with you saying what your selection is for episode 3.
So our next episode is going to be the Fred Olen Ray film Scalps, which if you haven't seen it, you should get out there and check it out. I forget the year that it comes out right now, and my phone is acting as my hotspot, so I don't want to disturb that as we got real good connection right now. But Fred Olen Ray is an old school shit cinema B-movie maestro that has been doing this shit since long before any of us were ever fucking with this stuff. He's one of the originators, I believe. Maybe not the originators, but he's one of the people that carried on the long tradition of using stock footage in films way back in the day when it wasn't like as easy to just toss it in there. You had to actually splice it in with film and things like that. It's nuts to think about that. But Fred is a personal hero of mine. Directed several of my favorite B movies of all time. Scalps is not among them, but it is like a good place to start with Fred Olen Ray. So those Fred Olen Ray submissions will be semi-frequent going forward, and we're going to cover basically his entire filmography, I'm sure, at some point here on the channel. So if you're a fan of Fred, tune in. It's going to be a good time.
Yep.
And that's pretty much what we got going. I don't know. I think plugging stuff on here is fine. And we're going to continue to do that. But I also do want to have you guys each throw out like a movie recommendation at random that you think people should check out with your plug. So what you got going on, Brandon? Where can people find you? All that good stuff.
Well, Septum Sen versus the World. We talk about movies. I have a series that I try to do. I've had, I think, 7 or 8 entries in it now, called Film Psychoanalysis. It's kind of a play because I am a mental health therapist in real life, so I like that to throw on to that. But I do deep dives into movies like that, so that we can actually call attention to them. That was the original concept. I mean, like I've done Dante's Shadow of Sin. I've done the Craiglon incident movies, all 3 of those. The 2 horror tales, 666, which, by the way, there's going to be a part 3 out soon. Shackle Demon Project, and soon Sharkula will be. I'm going to start working on that. And each one of those, I extensively watch it. I watch each film I do 5 times minimum. Shackle Demon Project, I probably watched about 14, 15 times.
Jesus Christ, dude. That's insane, Randlin.
That's because I had to make the darn Blu-rays for it. But with that being said, if I was to recommend a film to stay in the theme, I would say check out The Gamers if you haven't, because The Gamers is how many of these people probably got inspired, and it's easy to access. You can find it on YouTube, or kick some bucks over to them. There's Zombie. I keep wanting to say Zombie Orifice, but that's not it. Zombie
Orpheus.
Orpheus. Yeah, that the Zombie Orifice would be a good name.
It would be.
But they do that, and it's kind of fun watching that. There are actually 3 Gamers movies, and in the second one, they do get permission to use the D&D books, so it is kind of cool to watch that. So
They also have Journey Quest, which is
they do. And they're working on that 4th season again, so that's also a positive.
Yep. This stuff's still alive and well. Yeah, Cody, what you got going on? What you want to recommend to the people, baby?
I mean, you
Tell them
can
a good word.
you can look me up on IMDb. Made several, I don't see several, but I made a decent amount of these kind of micro budget movies. I can get you in touch with buying some of them from the directors. I also have a small batch of them myself. If you'd like to buy them from me, reach out to me on Facebook. Anybody a fan of these kind of genres will find something to enjoy in some version of those movies. What's funny is my recommendation was going to be Sharkula, but I'll go ahead and let Brandon keep that. I'm very much looking forward to his psychoanalysis because that movie was a blast to watch. I recently just watched Amityville in Space. If you're a fan of Sharkula, this movie will be right up your alley. Another Polonia movie. Been on a big Polonia kick, and there's plenty to be found in the land of the Polonia brothers.
It looks fucking great, dude. I really love the fucking cover art for that movie as well. Yeah, I want it on a t-shirt so bad. Like, it looks like a thrash metal fucking cover or something.
Yeah.
It's the best. You also have been doing some unboxings. What's that channel you've been doing those on?
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna make playlists for these guys' shit and mine. I'll do a full moon playlist as well. We'll put them on the channel here so that you guys can see them, because we can make playlists of any videos we want, make them public to our viewers on the Schlockaholics channel. So we will, have all that stuff available. This is actually the last video that will be cross-posted as well. Much like the Axe Grinder video, this will get some views over here on Retro Cult. Then it's going to go dormant while I put it over there. First episode is actually uploaded on the Schlockaholics channel, so you guys can go check that out while you wait for this to come out. It was a pretty good discussion. I listened to our Axe Grinder one last night, and I was pleased. It
was a
turned out
fun
real
one.
well. Especially for a first episode. I mean, we have those first episode jitters, but they pretty much work themselves out in like the first half hour, and then we're just flowing and talking and having fun, and I think this has gone pretty fucking well as well.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else going on other than some full moon discussions, which you guys will see pop up on here when they're announced. We are going to be doing more stuff over here. Definitely going to be having some characters on in the future, various directors and people that have been involved in some of these films. And I'm also going to be putting all of my mixtape segments over here, which you guys will be exposed to real soon. So I look forward to that. Good variety show stuff. Lots more discussions. Someone calling me on my phone that I can't find right now, but we'll get that all sorted out. I think we're having a good time. It's allowing us to knock some stuff down out of our backlog. Scalps will hopefully be a good notch in the belt to both of you guys. I know Brandon actually bought a copy. Cody will probably buy one eventually after he sees it, but I think this is going to be good for our collecting habits, our watching habits, and it'll just get us, paying attention to that indie backlog and getting the movies watched. So any of you guys that, know anybody we should interview or check out the films of, just email us at schlockaholics@gmail.com. And so that's it, Brandon. You have anything else you want to say to the people?
Other than tripping over myself, but no.
Yeah, I think we did this justice. I think I'm very much looking forward to Dungeon Rubber if we get around to that on here. Even if we do it on Inside Movies Galore, we gotta follow it up on here.
Oh yeah,
I think it's only proper. So you guys will see sequel coverage in the future, and yeah, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Get the fuck out of here.